pluribus opens with a mysterious signal from deep space. At a research facility resembling the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex, a group of astronomers detect an extraterrestrial microwave pulse repeating every 78 seconds. The signal's rhythmic sequence resembles Morse code. But one scientist realizes it's not language at all. It's RNA. Intrigued, the team converts the RNA into DNA using reverse transcriptase, hoping to uncover its meaning. As their experiment begins, a countdown clock appears on screen, marking 71 days, 13 hours, 21 minutes until an unknown event. The DNA solution is injected into laboratory rats, and the scientists await results. The story shifts to Carol, a successful novelist, attending a Dallas book reading alongside her manager and partner, Helen. Carol greets fans warmly, but when she's alone afterward, her public enthusiasm fades. Beneath her friendly exterior lies an exhaustion and resentment toward her fame. She confides her frustration to Helen during their ride, hinting at a strained but affectionate relationship between them. The timer flashes forward to 29 days and 23 hours remaining. At the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute, scientists Jen and Dee arrive for work, chatting casually with receptionist Mel about their stalled research on the mysterious RNA. Their test subjects, the injected mice, have shown no progress, and they prepare to euthanize them. But before they can, they discover one of the mice apparently dead. Jen inspects it and realizes its heart is still racing despite its immobility. Suddenly, the mouse springs to life and bites her hand through a thin glove. While Jen disinfects the wound, Dee notices her beginning to convulse violently. He rushes to help her through the lab's decontamination chamber, but her spasms stop abruptly. When Jen emerges, something is disturbingly different. She approaches Mel at the reception desk and kisses him. Dee, similarly transformed, kisses a janitor, the infection spreading through intimate contact. Soon, all four are united in eerie calm, filling petri dishes with saliva as if preparing to replicate the contagion. In a grotesque act of contamination, Jen licks the communal donuts at reception, symbolizing how quickly the infection will escape containment. The countdown then nears its end. Carol and Helen arrive home in Albuquerque, rearranging Carol's novels in a bookstore to ensure they're more visible before stopping at a bar for a drink. Carol orders alcohol while Helen stays sober to drive. Their conversation about Carol's next project is interrupted by television news announcing airport closures, a warning everyone in the bar ignores. Outside, Carol notices airplanes forming strange parallel patterns across the sky. A moment later, a man leaving the bar crashes his truck and Helen suddenly collapses. Carol rushes to help, but her phone shatters during the fall. Inside the bar, she finds everyone convulsing violently. Emergency lines are dead. Desperate, Carol decides to drive Helen to a hospital, but her rental car's breathalyzer prevents her from starting it. She commandeers the unconscious driver's truck, loads Helen in the back, and speeds away. Passing a crashed police car, she realizes the outbreak is everywhere. The city skyline is aflame. At the hospital, doctors and patients are convulsing, overtaken by the same infection. Carol struggles alone to get Helen onto a stretcher, but Helen dies before she can help her. As Carol stands over Helen's body, she notices the infected have stopped convulsing and are eerily still. When she calls out for help, a hospital orderly approaches, then kisses her. Others join, all speaking in a unified voice, insisting they just want to help. Horrified, Carol escapes. She drives home through a single unbroken sequence of destruction, finding her neighborhood also infected. The children next door eerily tell her where to find her spare key, showing that the hive already knows her routines. She drags Helen's body inside, locks the doors, and turns on the TV for answers. Every channel is chaotic until she lands on C-SPAN, where a silent man stands at the White House press podium. The ticker below begins addressing her directly, instructing Carol to call a displayed number. When she does, the man, introducing himself as Davis Taffler, calmly explains the unthinkable truth. Helen didn't die from the virus, but from her head injury. Carol, however, is unique. She is immune to this virus. Taffer reveals that only 12 uninfected humans remain. The rest of humanity is now linked through a single hive mind that communicates, absorbs memories, and acts in perfect synchrony. Taffler explains that the virus, a mind virus transmitted through saliva, doesn't simply kill. It merges individual minds into a collective entity. To maintain order, The hive intends to bring every remaining human under its control. Carol, for now, is being protected and studied until they can discover how to convert her. He adds that this may not be an alien invasion at all. The RNA signal could be a message from another civilization or even from future humans trying to guide evolution. The episode closes as the countdown reappears. The timer now reads 1 hour, but instead of counting down, it begins to count up, signaling that whatever was coming has already begun. Next, we see a global aftermath. The hive mind takeover is in motion. In Morocco and beyond, the networks of transformed humans continue to operate in synchrony, controlled by the collective. We see that vessels, once individual humans, are now parts of an immense system that shares memory, action, and intent. The counter on screen shows the time since the conversion began. Back in Albuquerque, our protagonist, Carol, wakes up with a hangover and heavy heart. She attempts to bury her partner and manager, Helen, in the backyard, but the moment is interrupted by the arrival of Zoja. Zoya is sent by the hive via monitoring by a drone to check on Carol, worried she may succumb to heat or despair. Carol recoils at the offer of water, suspecting it might be a means of infection, but reluctantly accepts Zoja's help. Carol realizes Zoja's role. The hive has chosen someone who resembles a character from her fiction to gain her trust and influence her emotions. Carol confronts Zoja, gets angry, and the hive momentarily glitches under her emotional outburst. Next, Carol drives into town and comes across a hive-controlled construction crew stuck in their task. She intervenes to help, but the system stabilizes and resumes control. Back home, Zoya brings tools to assist the grave digging. Carol calls the hive hotline to ask for Zoya's presence. Zoya returns and Carol asks if her outburst caused the glitch. Zoya affirms it did and that the hive is unaccustomed to personal emotional disruption. Zoya reveals that Carol's loud distress has caused damage on a large scale. Millions of vessels died when the hive faltered. Carol vomits and struggles with the weight of that truth. Later, Carol arranges a meeting. She will join 5 of the 12 known survivors who speak English. The meeting is to be held in Bilbao, chosen by the hive, but warns Carol that while it currently protects her, it cannot guarantee her safety should a survivor turn against her. In the meeting aboard a high-tech plane provided by the hive, Carol addresses the group. She wants ideas to stop the hive and restore autonomy, but the survivors resist. Many are comfortable with the new status quo. Kumba especially enjoys the freedom to fulfill desires that the hive grants. He argues that the hive ended discrimination and cruelty. Carol counters by drawing attention to the human cost, loss of autonomy, identity erased, and the vessel count. Zoja tells Carol the official casualty number is more than 886 million. On the other hand, her own emotional outburst caused 11 million deaths of vessels, which Carol uses to argue from her own culpability and complexity. Confrontation escalates when Carol realizes the survivors are not willing to fight. She tries to show Lakshmi that her son is not truly hers, but a vessel containing humanity's memories, not her child's continuity. The argument ends with Carol walking away, fainting from intoxication and emotional exhaustion. Meanwhile, Zoja reports the survivors have scattered except for Kumba. He requests Carol's permission to take Zoja as a companion. As he leaves for Las Vegas, this request infuriates Carol. She sees it as exploitation, proof the hive system enables such dynamics. She poses the choice to the hive. Zoja stays with Carol or goes with Kumba. In the final act, Carol boards a plane to return to Albuquerque, while Kumba boards another for Las Vegas with Zoja. In the surprising closing moment, Carol deboards her own flight and stops the other plane from leaving. Episode 3 opens far before the joining, taking us back 2,617 days to a trip Carol Sturka takes with her partner and manager Helen to an ice hotel in Norway. The milestone getaway is meant to celebrate Carol's growing success, but the flashback quietly reveals the tension between them. Helen embraces the freezing novelty of the hotel and the sky filled with northern lights while Carol stays glued to her phone, obsessively checking her book's ranking. The moment captures a rare time when Helen tries to pull Carol into life, urging her to enjoy what's in front of her. The episode returns to 3 days before the joining, where Carol is on a commercial flight back to New Mexico after meeting the other English-speaking immune. Zoja sits nearby, offering her a spot in first class, but Carol waves her off until she needs information. She asks about the immune people who can't speak English well, and Zoja lists them. A candy vendor in Istanbul, a contortionist in Bali, a retired fisherman in Sardinia, an 8-year-old in Lotho, and a Muezzin in Yemen. The final immune, Mayus Edo in Paraguay, has avoided contact entirely. Carol insists on calling him, leading to a series of brief hostile exchanges that end with Carol cursing him out in Spanish. Once they land in Albuquerque, Carol tries to get rid of Zosha at the curb, but Zosha insists on handing over all Carol's collected mail. One envelope bears Helen's name, and Carol lingers on it. A larger package contains a personal massager Helen bought for her, something Carol once wanted, but refused to buy. Overwhelmed, she orders the others to erase Helen completely from their collective mind. They are never to mention or recall her again. Only I get to remember her, she says, making the boundary absolute. Left alone, Carol buries herself in Golden Girls episodes until a ding of the doorbell interrupts her. The others have delivered a breakfast tray, knowing she has little food in the house. Carol throws it straight into the outdoor trash and demands that they stop trying to help. But hunger wins out, so she drives to the local Sprouts supermarket, only to find the store shelves stripped bare. Zoya explains that the others consolidated all food storage to be more efficient. Carol insists she can shop on her own. Minutes later, trucks flood the parking lot and the others restock the entire store in perfect rhythm. That night, the city's lights vanish, except for those in Carol's neighborhood. Zosha explains that most power is shut down now that crime and most jobs no longer exist. In frustration, Carol says that the only thing that could fix her week is a hand grenade, a sarcastic comment she expects to be ignored. Hours later, Zosha returns to Carol's doorstep holding an actual grenade. The others debated whether she was joking, but chose not to risk denying her request. Carol lets her into the house for a drink. As they talk, Zosha explains that the others work constantly and still don't know when Carol will join their mind. Their need to bring her in is instinctive. Carol pushes further, challenging their idea of saving her, reminding Zosha that her memories of Norway with Helen are off limits. Eventually, Carol picks up the grenade. Convinced it must be fake, she pulls the pin. Zosha reacts instantly, grabs the live grenade from her hand, and tackles Carol to the ground. The explosion blows out every window of the unicorn truck, and scatters burning debris across the yard. Zoya staggers out, collapsing with her back covered in shrapnel. By morning, Carol waits in the hospital as another updates her on Zosha's condition. No nerve damage, a serious concussion, and monitoring required. But Carol only wants to know why they gave her a real grenade in the first place. Their answer is simple. She asks, they give. If she wanted another grenade, they would bring one. The realization lands heavily on Carol. The others cannot refuse her, whether it's help, resources, or something dangerous. Episode 4 opens with a flashback to Manuso Ovido, the only immune person Carol had failed to reach in Episode 3. We see him living alone in the Paraguayan storage facility he once managed. The shelves are empty, food is gone, even starving. He refuses help from the hive. He spends his days monitoring a homemade radio rig, logging faint signals, and trying to understand what has happened to everyone else. Hunger finally forces him to break his own rules. He writes a polite apology note to the renter of a storage unit before forcing it open and finding only dog food, which he forces himself to eat. At that exact moment, his phone rings, the first call from Carol. Her awkward, overly polite attempt to communicate only convinces him she is one of them. When she calls back and curses him out, Mayus finally realizes she is immune like him. It's the first real connection he has felt in months. The episode then returns to Carol immediately after the grenade accident that sent Zosha to the hospital. Carol drives home in a barely functioning car, then resorts to taking an abandoned police cruiser. When she arrives, her street is full of hive mind volunteers repairing the damage, including the town mayor, now just another member of the collective. Carol watches them silently and begins planning how to stop the infection from taking her too. She sets up a whiteboard and begins listing everything she knows about the others, including one question she needs to confirm. Can they lie? To test this, she brings in a hive mind volunteer named Larry. Larry answers every question with complete openness, even when the truth is awkward or painful. He quotes Carol's books word for word, explains why the hive loves them, and eventually answers the question Carol least wants to ask. What did Helen truly think of her writing? Larry relays Helen's private thoughts exactly. She found Carol's books harmless, a truth Carol didn't expect and didn't want, but it confirms what she needs. Carol visits Zosia in the hospital next. When Carol asks if the hive has learned anything new about the infection, Zoya quietly admits they now understand far more than they did at first. Carol asks whether there is a way to reverse the change. Zosia doesn't answer directly, but her silence is enough. Carol realizes there is a way out. Determined, Carol leaves the hospital and gathers materials. She visits a pharmacy, takes sodium thiopental, and tests the drug on herself. Under its influence, she records a video, speaking freely and without restraint. What she hears later confirms her deepest fear. Joining the hive would erase everything that made her. Helen, her grief, her anger, and even her stubbornness. Believing the truth serum can force answers the hive cannot willingly give. Carol returns to Zosia, pretending she wants to take her outside for fresh air. Carol secretly injects her with the drug and wheels her out of the hospital. But the dosage interacts with whatever medication Zosia is already on, and she quickly becomes distressed and confused. Carol presses her for the antidote anyway, desperate for a real answer. But Zoya's panic triggers a medical crisis. The hive converges almost instantly. Dozens of bodies surround Zosia, their faces alert and unified. Carol panics, thinking they will take Zosia away and hide the truth. She grabs a police handcuff from the car and chains herself to Zosia, screaming that she won't let them separate them. But the hive shows no aggression. If she doesn't allow them to help, they will let Zosia die because Carol is the immune one, and her choices override everything the hive wants. Realizing this, Carol breaks. She releases Zosia's hand and finally allows the others to intervene. They move in silently, beginning life-saving measures. Next, in the hospital, Carol answers a call from Lakshmi. Lakshmi angrily accuses her of upsetting everyone and questions her mental state, refusing to listen when Carol tries to explain what she has learned about the joint. For now, Zosia remains alive, but unconscious. Carol stays at the hospital, sleeping in waiting areas, while the joints silently exit the building together. When Carol wakes, the hospital is completely empty. Zosia is gone and a recorded message on a phone confirms that the joined know Carol is there. They say they need distance for now. From the rooftop, Carol watches as the joined leave the city in coordinated streams. She is left completely alone as the clock reaches day 8 and 22 hours since the joining. Back at home, Carol sets up her camcorder again. This time, she records a message for any remaining survivors, stating that the joined can be separated back into individuals. She urges them to cooperate and search for a solution together, though she's unsure anyone will see it. She leaves the tape in a package at the end of her driveway and records a separate voice note for the joined, asking them to collect it, copy it, and distribute it to the other 12 survivors. A drone arrives to retrieve the package. With no humans around, animals begin to move in. Dogs tear through Carol's trash, including the food she discarded earlier. The next morning, as Carol cleans up, she notices the drone tangled on a lamp post. Following its path into town, she realizes the trash is filled with empty milk containers. This discovery leads her to a nearby dairy farm where she finds evidence the joint have been using the facility to manufacture a substance that helps them function. Water has been mixed with a mysterious white powder. Carol tests it and determines the pH level is neutral, but without anyone to consult, she can't identify it. She truly is alone. That night, wolves descend on her property, digging near Helen's grave. Carol scares them off by driving a police car into the yard with the sirens blaring and ends up sleeping in the vehicle. Knowing she can't leave the grave exposed, she spends the day hauling heavy slabs to properly cover it. Her focus then returns to the white powder. Tracing its origin, Carol follows the supply trail to a warehouse named Agrijet. Inside a massive freezer, she finds large quantities of stored food and something else. Lifting a white tarp, Carol is stunned by what's hidden beneath. After a moment to steady herself, she grabs her camcorder and forces herself to go back inside. The shelves are lined with shrink-wrapped packages containing severed human body parts, vacuum-sealed and stored like food. The joined are processing human remains through industrial grinders. In a smooth transition, Carol is suddenly back at home packing her belongings. This time, instead of relying on a drone to deliver her findings, she decides to confront another survivor directly. That survivor is Mr. Diabetes, who is living extravagantly in Las Vegas, fully immersed in casino life. Carol tracks him down at the Westgate Hotel. To her surprise, Diabetes has already seen her earlier recordings, and the joint have allowed him access to them. Even more unsettling is that he has independently concluded that the joint are consuming humans, and he appears disturbingly calm about it. Diabet shows Carol a presentation narrated by John Cena. It reveals that the liquid sustaining the joint is made mostly from stockpiled food nearing spoilage, supplemented by 12% HDP human-derived protein. The joint have chosen to repurpose these bodies rather than let them decay unused. From their perspective, it is an efficient solution. Diabet explains that all the other survivors are aware of this arrangement and largely accept it. The joint also face extinction within a decade if they cannot secure a stable food source. Learning how close the others have become and how little they share her horror deepens Carol's sense of isolation. Before Carol leaves, Diabet reveals another crucial detail. The joint cannot forcibly convert people yet. Transformation requires consent, as the virus must be tailored to an individual's stem cells, which can only be obtained through an invasive process. The discovery is recent, and Diabet has refused to consent. Carol immediately does the same. The episode then jumps to 9 days and 18 hours after the joining. Menuso scans radio frequencies on the verge of giving up until one channel produces unusual static. That night, he receives Carol's tape. Motivated by her message, he decides to leave town just as the city's lights suddenly flicker back on. After packing and eating real food, Menuso sets off, but his car stalls. Forced to continue on foot, he is confronted by a joined version of his mother. He ignores her, jump-starts the car downhill, and drives away. Meanwhile, Carol stops for fuel on her way home. As usual, she asks the drone to bring her a red Gatorade, but while it's occupied, she quietly fills her car with boxes of fireworks. Nearly 13 days after the joining, Carol is back at her house, launching fireworks into the sky and howling along with the wolves that echo through the night. When the police cruiser refuses to start, Carol abandons it and switches vehicles. She spends the day drifting from place to place. She sings constantly as she moves, filling the silence left by the vanished world. That evening, she treats herself to a carefully planned dinner, marking her anniversary with Helen by ordering dishes that represent different years of their life together. At the same time, Menusos continues his journey toward Carol. The joined repeatedly offer him rides, but he refuses every time. Instead, he siphons fuel from abandoned cars, determined to rely only on himself. He has also begun teaching himself English, hoping to speak with Carol when they finally meet. As the terrain grows more hostile, Mayus is forced to leave his car behind and enter a dense jungle on foot. The joined again intervene, offering safe passage, but Mayus angrily rejects them. He accuses them of building their existence on stolen lives and insists they deserve nothing. He sets his car on fire and disappears into the jungle alone, repeating English words as he walks. Mayus injures his back and tears his skin on sharp thorns. He burns his wounds to cauterize them and presses on, but exhaustion eventually overwhelms him. He collapses on the forest floor, barely conscious, until the sound of a helicopter cuts through the silence. Someone descends on a rope and lifts him to safety. The story then jumps forward to 48 days and 16 hours after the joining. Carol remains at home, still firing off fireworks and playing golf, but the energy is gone. One morning, Zojia suddenly arrives. Carol staggers toward her and breaks down, wrapping her in a tight embrace as she sobs uncontrollably. It's revealed that earlier Carol painted the words "come back" on the ground as a final plea. Meanwhile, Mayus wakes in a hospital, still furious that the 20 Knights may join for rescuing him from the jungle. He holds a doctor at knife point demanding proper treatment and a receipt for all hospital fees, even adding the ambulance to the bill. Despite not being fully recovered, he is reinvigorated when he realizes he's in Panama and continues his journey using the ambulance as transport. Meanwhile, back home, Carol prepares a drink for Zojia, but the atmosphere is tense. Social interactions have been scarce for Carol, making even a simple card game challenging. The rest of the joined are now back in town, and Zojia explains their philosophy. They don't believe in ownership. Everything is shared, including living spaces, and they all sleep together under one roof, a nearby stadium. Animals are neither harmed nor displaced. Pets that form bonds with humans are cared for, and Carol even joins them in sleeping alongside the animals. Carol discovers that approaching the coaling joined with patience and a gentle touch yields far more information than confrontation. She learns that trains are used to transport food across the country, and that the hive mind is deeply attuned to the emotions of individuals. The joined are constructing a massive antenna intending to use the planet's energy to send a signal to Kepler-22b. The joined, like a viral entity, aim to expand their reach, eventually targeting other planets once Earth is fully integrated. Carol spends the next day playing croquet with Zojia. She is then invited to an old diner, fully restored by the joined after having burned down previously. The diner holds deep personal significance for Carol as it's where she first honed her writing skills. Overwhelmed, she admires the reconstruction, but leaves the diner quietly, sensing a deliberate distraction. By morning, Carol is back at work, energized and inspired. She decides to refocus her protagonist, Raven, as a woman, and she and Zojia discuss plot ideas while cooking together. Yet beneath the domestic calm, Zojia realizes that Carol's life and their world is on the brink of another upheaval. Mayus is nearly there. Somewhere else, a mysterious package being transported from an airplane carried across remote trails and delivered to a small village. The villagers gather, chanting as a metal tin is presented to a young girl named Mayus. She inhales the fumes released from the container and immediately begins convulsing before collapsing. The experiment succeeds. Mayus becomes one of the joined. 60 days and 16 hours after the joining, Zojia and Carol monitor the arrival of Mayus at Carol's home. The joined believe he may have seen Carol's first video and interpreted it as a call to action. Carol plans to listen to him briefly and then send him away, but Zojia and the others are uneasy, sensing he could be dangerous. Their concerns deepen when Musos arrives armed with a machete. Carol insists he leave it behind, and after a tense exchange, they agree to talk in the backyard. Carol speaks cautiously about the joint, having grown more sympathetic while still searching for a solution. Mayus, however, sees the joint as an absolute evil that must be eradicated. He confronts Carol about being left alone for 40 days, but she avoids explaining why the joint eventually returned. His paranoia intensifies once inside the house, where he searches for surveillance devices and discovers a sensor installed by Helen to monitor Carol's drinking. That night, Mayus learns Carol has been communicating with the joined. He contacts them directly and demands to speak with Zojia. When Carol finds out, she storms over, furious and jealous. Zojia calmly explains that the joined care for Mayus just as deeply as they care for Carol. Suddenly, Carol begins to seize. Realizing Mayus is responsible, he is experimenting on another joint, triggering seizures across the hive mind. Using his radio, he broadcasts a strange signal, attempting to pull the main joint back one by one. The method nearly works, but Carol arrives with a shotgun and forces him to stop. Seeing Musos as a threat, the joint flee once more. Mayus remains convinced he has found the key to saving them, but Carol refuses to join him and leaves with Zojia. Carol and Zojia later spend time together, sharing moments of genuine happiness. They discuss the original unjoined Zojia, who once loved someone but no longer inhabits this body. Carol feels lighter than she did with Helen, but the peace doesn't last. The joint reveal they can use the eggs Carol froze with Helen to obtain her stem cells without invasive procedures. Within a month, they may be able to make her one of them. Mayus continues studying the radio signal, believing it holds the solution. A helicopter soon appears overhead, dropping a steel container. Zojia is piloting it, having decided to join Mayus at last. As the season ends, the container is revealed to hold an atomic bomb.